What's up guys, welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Conquered a Mysterious World Part 8. And if you did enjoy the video, please hit a like. And if you new my channel, I like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
15th chapter. Rika and Naruto left the room after finishing with Yu Suk-young, who decided to meet up later since she needed to report something. She appeared to be the enchantress he was looking for, as she usually did. She wasn't a young girl, but rather an older woman with a daughter.
Her physique was mature and full of charm. Her hair was long and her eyes were purple. She was dressed in a lovely formal gown that gave her a new vibe. She was one of the reasons tamers wanted to come and apply in this place. He'd heard strange comments like her being as thick as oatmeal and stepping on me, among other things. The world was full of eccentric and twisted individuals. It didn't help that the majority of the people working there were incredibly attractive, and changing one's appearance was a simple, risk-free task.
If someone didn't like their appearance, they could have it changed and be back on their way in a day. Now that everyone was good, attractive and gorgeous, models and the like were actually very high-ranking people who didn't rely solely on their appearances.
Mr. Uzumaki, Miss Rika, it's nice to meet you. I hope everything was up to your standards, Mi-young said as she approached them. Standing in front of Naruto and Rika, everyone could see how tall she was. Naruto was 1.9 meters tall, and she stood equal to him, making Rika appear diminutive.
Rika was envious of her beauty and wished she could mature faster. It was the result of having a guy who pretended to be older and seemed to like older ladies. He didn't say anything, but his gaze slipped from time to time. "Good morning, Miss Kim," Naruto said, shaking her hand. "Young did an excellent job, and we are extremely satisfied." The woman in front of him was driven by her career. She had worked exceedingly hard to get her position, only to be passed over for the head job due to Mitsua's superior Digimon. She didn't show it, but she despised him. She had made many sacrifices for this, yet someone younger took her position. She was a professional woman, but her true personality was overpowering, which is why her husband left her.
Even her daughter didn't get along with Mi-young because of her job. That's great to hear. I'll make sure Miss Young is rewarded for her efforts. It may be a little personal, but I hope my daughter hasn't been a bother. Mi-young's daughter Hyomina was Rias's buddy, and she was 15, much as the rest of the gang. You don't have to be so formal, Miss Kim. Hyomina is a nice girl. She has never been a problem, and Rias always enjoys her presence. You have taught her well, so please have some confidence in your daughter. Naruto had heard Hyomina moan about her mother. Rias was very close to Naruto, so he knew all of her friends because she brought them over his house whenever she could. If he were a normal sibling, her antics would have irritated him because she interfered with his training and alone time. Thankfully, she had matured and had stopped doing it.
"I appreciate your kind words, and I'm glad Hyomina has good friends. Miss Kim, I believe you have some work." Rika disliked Naruto's pleasantries with the elderly. Why couldn't they just get to the point already? It wasn't a matter of maturity. It was just her nature, and she didn't appreciate the look Mi-young gave Naruto. Or was that her mind playing tricks on her? It's not difficult to envision her seducing Naruto in order to advance in life. "Please accept my apologies for taking up your time, Miss Rika. I came to inform you that a company has expressed interest in sponsoring you. It is a well-known brand that is very rewarding, and we would definitely recommend it to any tamer. Would you prefer to see them in person or just get their proposal?" Rika's comments didn't bother Mi-young since she saw the young girl as a child. Naruto, on the other hand, never made that mistake again after the first time. He was an experienced adult with whom she could not play games. He appeared to be watching her pranks, but she still enjoyed performing them. Mi-young was intrigued in Naruto, just as Rika suspected. She had been intrigued in him prior to learning of his harem decision. He possessed all of the traits she desired, and she could greatly profit from them. She came from a typical family and amassed all of her riches on her own. Her husband was wealthy, yet she took nothing but used his name to her advantage. It was her source of pride. Polygamy was common in ancient periods all around the world because civilization needed formidable fighters. Strong tamers were encouraged to have a large number of children for this purpose. Even so, there were issues. tamers, mutants, and new types could never have children with regular humans.
For various reasons, strong male tamers, mutants, and new types could not have children with normal people.
In the case of the female, the regular seed was insufficient to power the procedure. For the male, he was either too strong and would murder his spouse, or his offspring would kill him.
This was also true when it came to having sex with Digimon. Female humanoid Digimon were much too powerful for any human to bear children with. Any human could only have sex with a rookie Digimon, which was severely frowned upon and repulsive. Only new types had a chance because they could reach the level of a champion Digimon, which was extremely rare.
Male Digimon would have the same trouble with normal human women as mutants would.
Ever when equal partners were engaged, the process was not easy. A war seemed to take place before pregnancy ever occurred. It was the reason they pushed individuals to obtain more partners and were looking for other answers to these difficulties, which was very unfortunate for humanity. It was the reason her pride saw nothing wrong with being one of Naruto's partners. She wanted to get in there before his powers grew stronger, and other ladies felt the same way, because none of them realized Naruto had complete control over his body. They were under a strict time constraint to obtain his child, become a significant part of history, and become wealthy.
To return to the sponsorship, that was one of the ways tamers made money. This was the most profitable technique, other than killing targets with bounties, completing missions, or selling data or minerals. People from clans didn't require money, but the bulk of the population didn't, thus they needed sponsors. Because there were so many bright people, firms and brands competed for them. The group stepped in to ensure that the tamer was not tricked into a bad contract. It allowed tamers to make a lot of money safely while also increasing their public visibility. Except for Yamato, Izzy, and Mimi, the Digi-destined were largely from ordinary families. Before he became a tamer, Tai's family only lived in an apartment. With his travels, he got famous and made money in a variety of ways to reach his current position. Sponsors were one of his sources of income because he did not join a clan or another group. They were now immensely wealthy, and Izzy was in charge of several of their businesses. Rika, meet up with Carrie, and I'll join you guys soon. Naruto turned to Rika and asked her to depart while he attended to the meeting. He knew Rika didn't like such things, so he let her go and spend some time alone with Hikari. Rika considered it for a time before agreeing. She'd be bored and possibly irritate Naruto in the process. She didn't want to draw his notice because he was quite perceptive. Alright, but don't take too long, Rika said as she hugged him and encouraged him to hurry up. She had to get used to such meetings because Naruto was the leader and he would be in charge of them eventually, and there would be more of them. She considered getting some practice in so she wouldn't have to avoid them later. She just didn't have the patience for such things, despite her grandmother's efforts to teach her how to sit and listen on such occasions. I will, but don't forget to play nice or it will be punishment time, Naruto said, and Rika shivered, not in a negative manner.
He had spanked her for fighting Carrie on their date by placing her on his legs. It had been humiliating, but she couldn't deny that she had enjoyed herself. He'd turned her into a pervert, and for some reason, he had the perverse habit of being referred to as Lord Seventh. She had no idea what that meant and just assumed it was his alias, as several tamers had one and didn't always use their own name. Rika walked out with flair, a kiss on his lips and a smirk at Mi Young. She was stunning and radiated fire from every angle. Naruto merely felt like he was playing with girls the same age as his own daughter or a friend's daughter.
As a result, there was some awkwardness that he had to ignore. But he did enjoy his time with them because he had always enjoyed receiving and giving affection. Naruto accompanied Mi Young to the meeting room after Rika had left, where she would personally walk him through the process.
Naruto entered the meeting room and noticed two women sitting on the other end. The meeting was held in a small room because there were just a few persons in attendance.
One woman had tanned skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, and a figure that made people want to remember it as if their lives depended on it.
It was obvious that she was mixed, which was pretty common.
She donned a black formal gown with a tie and black heels. The second woman had short black hair and violet eyes, and she was also a thick and highly lovely woman. She was dressed in a white shirt, a black skirt, a black coat, and heels. Both women were exceedingly gorgeous and gave him the impression that they were models. He wouldn't know because he didn't do those things, and neither did the others. Mi Young introduced both parties, and Naruto sat opposite Mi Young. Yumi Ishiyama, the tanned woman, was the CEO of the company, and the other woman was Aiko, her assistant.
Ecstasy was the name of their company. Naruto was compelled to turn around and walk away upon hearing the name, but it would be impolite and short-sighted of him. Instead of acting immature, he chose to listen and decide later. It is a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Uzumaki. I have been a huge fan of yours for a long time, so this isn't just lip service, and I am very happy to meet you. Yumi turned out to be a very cheery and welcoming person, while Aiko was as serious as anybody could have imagined. Thank you. I appreciate your words, and I would love to get into these topics later. Could you explain your brand? Naruto smiled and shook her hand. He was completely professional and did not give the impression of a young adolescent. His gaze never strayed, and his body language said nothing more than what he said. He was here on business, and their bodies wouldn't change anything.
This was something they could all agree on, which made Yumi pleased because she was a big fan. She was interested in martial arts and had seen him compete in tournaments. She had joined his dojo, but he was rarely there, and she had employment. Aiko, on the other hand, was rather dissatisfied because their appearance provided them an advantage in talks. Their company was full of attractive ladies, which made it easier to attract male tamers.
Mi Young anticipated his reaction because he didn't even react to her, and she thought herself superior to both ladies.
Yumi paused Aiko and decided to present it herself, as it was the reason she had come. Yumi rarely came to the negotiating table for these things, and Aiko usually handled it with the help of other staff. It was critical for high-level people to attend since it demonstrated their seriousness and appreciation for the tamer's talent.
When their rival's owner decides to visit and treats the tamer like a friend, pride and such will only push the tamer away. As the name suggests, it focuses on a trance-like state in which a person transcends normal consciousness, and our main product is ladies' wear that makes them look strong, sexy, and confident. Every woman here is wearing our product, so you can see how great it looks and is received. In addition, we design male apparel. Your clothing is from our competitor, and we can promise you that we can absolutely produce a better product. But because none of this is likely to pique your attention, we'd want to enlist your assistance in developing our final product, which focuses on Digimon partners. Yumi revealed in detail, we are producing clothing for the Digimon and even armors that adhere to our design policy. All of our products are of high quality and have gone through the required testing for such a claim. Yumi did not discuss the brand's history or anything like that. She didn't want to squander his time by pushing him away. It would have given the appearance that she didn't care about his comments and was only interested in paying lip regard. She assumed his character based on the information presented and proceeded to the point.
For the sake of eye delight, the hologram displayed her items and models. He was impressed by the armor designs. Because he wasn't particularly skilled at it, Asura's armor was quite simple.
I like it. What are the advantages and disadvantages?
Yumi was thrilled as they passed the first step, but it was difficult to tell what he was thinking with his serene demeanor.
However, his smile and nod indicated that he liked what he saw. The benefits are negotiable, but we will present our offers for your consideration, Yumi answered, and Aiko took out the file. We are willing to provide free passes to the entire team at our clothing stores. We will provide accommodation for the team. We will fund your adventures and provide annual salaries that are negotiable. Finally, we will personally design and fund your equipment, Aiko stated. Wasn't that a bit much? In exchange, we would like your team to serve as our brand representatives, wearing our insignia, providing priority service to us, and protecting the brand in an emergency. You will be required to come for photo shoots on occasion, but the rest of the time we will not interfere with your goals and job. Aiko went on to explain the charges.
They appear to have taken a chance that this team will live up to their full potential. Most people would not grant these privileges until the tamer had attained champion status and demonstrated that he was still going strong. Yumi charged forward with full force, attempting to land a critical hit and one-shot the opponent. If her bet paid off, they'd have a formidable protector in this perilous planet. They would have incredibly famous people as brand advocates in order to compete with the big boys, and they would even have superior resources to produce new lines of items that had been trapped in the research department. This is a very lucrative deal, but it is better not to decide hastily. Please wait for other offers, and if you have any questions, please put them forth at this point before any agreement is signed. Breaking a contract is a very harsh process, and the legal system will punish you for it. Mi Young spoke through the communicator, so that only Naruto heard her words spoken by her mind rather than her tongue. This prevented them from developing a negative relationship with these parties and allowed the tamer to think rationally without feeling pressured by the corporation. The other side had devices as well, so they could speak with each other during the meeting without the other side knowing. What about other sponsors? Can I only take yours and decline everyone else? No, that would be too greedy and illogical. You can take other sponsors, but they can't have similar products. You can check the list for those brands that we can't allow. Yumi answered as Aiko handed him the file. They had anticipated such a question. He didn't seem like the type to get lost by this much, especially given he came from a wealthy family. One of the most difficult things any of them had to go through was reeling in a clan kid from the top. The Uzumaki clan also marketed things under their name, so he would most likely endorse those, and it was a good thing they didn't create similar products or the discussions would be called off before they even began.
I am pleased with this offer. However, I will respond once I return from my trip next month. I will consider other offers as you expect, and if I accept your offer, I will visit your company for the contract. Naruto stood up and spoke. He wasn't going to make a decision this quickly or without consulting with his team. He could do it alone because they were young, but he needed them to learn not to rely solely on him. They were a team, and they had to operate as such. Wonderful. We'll prepare a grand welcome for your group, and if you have some time, we could have some drinks, Yumi said, noting that they had come expecting him. He had, however, acted more maturely than they had anticipated, and their stares had had little effect. That was a surprise point because most individuals were persuaded by them. Thank you for the offer, but I have another commitment to fulfill, Naruto stated, taking her and Aiko's contact information. Even if they didn't agree on this transaction, he didn't mind having such powerful contacts. They may end up hiring him regardless of the sponsorship.
Thank you for your time, Miss Kim. I'll see you later, Naruto replied, resting his hand on her shoulder.
It's just part of my job, Naruto, and you can just call me Mi Young. There's no need to be so formal. Mi Young said calmly as she lightly scratched his hand.
He'd seen such a gesture before and had always dismissed it in the old world. It was her method of expressing her interest in him. He didn't feel affection, thus it couldn't be love. Otherwise, he would have known.
He remembered the gesture from Ino, Tamari, Shizune, Tenten, and a slew of other ladies he'd met. He had made it a point to assist his buddies in resolving the issue because it appeared that their relationships were also failing. It was obvious to see with Ino and Tamari because their partners didn't match their body chemistry. Tenten had surprised him because he assumed Lee wouldn't mind because he was amorous, but it appears he had been ignoring it to spend time with Metal. Shizune surprised him because he had always thought of her as a big sister. It was unknown why she never married. He expected her to choose Kakashi, but it appears that their relationship did not work out.
It was surprised to learn that he was her love interest. He had always assumed it was just familial affection. With his abilities, he can't tell them apart. Even so, thanks for everything, Mi Young. Let's have drinks sometime, Naruto said as he exited the room. He had resolved to accept girls he was drawn to, and he couldn't lie, he was more attracted to older ladies because he was actually old. He made the decision, but because he had never done something like it before, he had done nothing in these days. He'd become entirely accustomed to what he had. It had become a habit. He'd only done it for love, and it was never casual for him. Even his present girlfriends pursued him and offered themselves, but he still hadn't done it without a clear confession. Mi Young would be the first lady he acted on a hint with, albeit how far that went would depend on their typical interaction. He had also unintentionally pushed Young. He could tell she was conflicted, so he planned to take her in and fix her problem. As he walked out of the association, he came upon Naso Ri, who handed him a card and winked at him. Her phone number and address were printed on the card. She was extremely clear about what she desired. He could immediately identify her personality. She was the type to take advantage of others. She had been seeing someone else and had used him to obtain many luxury items, but she decided to pursue Naruto once the opportunity presented itself. She was confident in her appearance and style. She'd never have a shot with him because he didn't like ladies like her. She was the type of person who would destroy families and relationships, but that wasn't an option with him. There would always be people with questionable morality in the world, no matter what happened. Naruto was still trying to figure out how to solve the problem. He was no longer willing to risk his life for it. While Naruto was in the meeting, Rika caught up with Carrie in a nearby cafe while informing the others that the party had been cancelled. They had planned to party all night, but it had been moved to the digital world. It was disappointing, but it didn't disturb anyone too much. The two girls drew attention for their beauty and celebrity, as they always did. Hikari was the only member of the crew who remained in the human world after the others had left in the early morning. They had completed the test the day before, and it had been simple for all of them because they had spent over 2 weeks training their partners while receiving advice from professionals such as Tai and Yamato. Hikari had already gone, despite the fact that she despises killing but recognized that it had to be done. She could always wait it out, but that would be unjust to her spouse and to humanity. The planet needed every tamer for its preservation, and sitting out with such immense potential was highly irresponsible.
With such thoughts in mind, Hikari overcame her aversion to killing and persuaded Aaliyah to kill. Aaliyah and Micah, Takeru's partner Patamon, had it even worse than Tesla because they were inherently pleasant people. They would only destroy if they came up against a dark Digimon. Regardless, she had stayed behind for Naruto and had planned to meet her team on that date. How did it go? Carrie said, sitting down with a cup of coffee and some cookies. She preferred sweets to match her sweet disposition, whilst Rika preferred sour foods to match her sour personality. Rika provided Naruto with a sweet and sour flavor, giving him the best of both worlds. Naruto, on the other hand, preferred sweets over acidic foods. As you expected, the boys broke and are now crying in their rooms, Rika said as she sat down and ordered some coffee and cookies. The real news, please, Carrie said, knowing that her friend and sister had a sharp tongue that liked to play mind games with others. She clearly inherited the trait from her family. Those folks enjoyed messing with people's heads. She had, however, seen Naruto do it. When he was fighting seriously, he trash-mouthed people and looked like an asshole doing it.
She liked his regular personality, except for the part where he seems to relish inflicting pain.
Anyone who knew Naruto well knew that he had sadistic inclinations that manifested themselves in various situations, most notably when he was extremely agitated. We passed except Henry and Takato. I think Takato would be fine in 2 days while Tesla could be a problem. Naruto recommended you, so it depends on your abilities. Rika responded with a neutral tone. They had been spending more time together than ever before, and their relationship had improved, but they still needed time. Rika disliked spending time with Carrie, which resulted to their confrontation just 1 day earlier. Rika was the one who started it all, but she felt she was being played like a fiddle. This witch was concealing her deceitful disposition under a kind facade. Hearing that Carrie was delighted and Rika wasn't wrong, because she, too, had difficulty sharing and had played with Rika in her displeasure.
It wasn't too difficult because the girl was quite self-assured. Rika had been disciplined, but Carrie had also seen a severe side to him because he hadn't let her leave. He had warned her against doing such things because they would have to live together. It was advisable to avoid such activities because they would breed enmity over time. Carrie couldn't dispute that mental process and agreed to stop committing such atrocities. Rika also learned to control her want to attack Carrie. They were still love and battle rivals, but the goalposts had shifted. Unlike the previous one, where she was only going to be his lover, she was going to gain Naruto's heart to a higher degree than Carrie.
She was no longer his lover, and it didn't have the same ring to it.
In just a few days, both ladies had learned more about Naruto and themselves. They had seen the worst of themselves and had to combat their negative emotions in order to accept each other, as well as the maids who appeared to be emotionally bonded to Naruto.
I'll do my best, and hopefully we'll all make it through together.
Perhaps, so. Have you given up yet? Hikari set her coffee down and stared at Rika. Her expression and tone were serious, but it turned out to be a joke. What's the deal with you? You need to learn better jokes, because that was rude, Carrie said as she wiped her dress clean with the wipe. Such occurrences have occurred since the beginning of time, and they have finally found the most expedient remedy. It was a well-received product, and people no longer had to walk around in filthy clothes until they could find a change. They no longer needed to modify because the problem had been resolved. Who said it was a joke? I was just writing fiction with my mouth again, Rika remarked, not knowing how to talk to Carrie normally without Naruto present to regulate them. If at first you didn't succeed, you should have given up. You're probably too tone deaf for this. Look what you made me do, you crazy woman. Carrie also ended up speaking negatively despite promising to be respectful. Rika's demeanor just irritated her. Speak freely, girl. This is my way of doing things. I don't hate you. It will just take time for us to adjust, and I am not as submissive as you. You are simply impossible. I am not submissive because I am acting mature while you are immature. We are supposed to be working together, but you are always rude. That was just normal. I suppose you haven't seen my rude side, which I promise is a lot worse. I just want us to show our true selves and move on, but you insist on taking those happy drugs and hiding behind that smile. You know you're messed up. I enjoy feeling happy. Why should I appear cold and unapproachable? I thought you were on some kind of medication to always smile like that. Did you think the same for Naruto? He's definitely doing weed and cocaine. Will you leave if I promise to miss you? Carrie knew this was going to be difficult. They were just polar opposites with competing prides.
That gave me goosebumps. Please refrain from such dangerous attacks, or I may need to see a therapist.
Since you have trouble speaking like a normal person, I guess I'll have to do everything. You could have just said that you didn't know how to start a conversation. Carrie calmed herself and smiled. This obviously isn't working, so I think it's time for us to split up and start making other people unhappy. Carrie kept smiling as Rika felt Naruto's hand rest on her shoulders and squeeze a little. What exactly did I say about this? Do it again. I like it when you are sarcastic. Nice try. I said play nice. Do you want me to do it in front of everyone?
I know you won't be able to do it, so why say it?
You're using your pretty little head for the wrong reasons. Don't antagonize Carrie too much. A little bit of fun is fine, but too much isn't good, Naruto said as he leaned forward from above and stared her in the eyes. I just didn't know how to play nice, so it just happened. I'll try harder, and maybe learn from the dissatisfied fairy on the other side, Rika admitted. I just didn't know how to play nice, so it just happened. I'll try harder, and maybe learn from the dissatisfied fairy on the other side. Naruto sat in the center, tapping her head, and grabbed Carrie's hand in his. You know how she is, so please understand. She isn't trying to be rude to you. She's sometimes had problems talking normally with certain people. Just play along, and it will help you increase your patience and control, Naruto stated in other words. He didn't blame them because it was like taking both Ino and Sakura and expecting them to be civil about it. I will try, Carrie answered, feeling better having him there and grasping his hand. She wanted to kiss him but held back because she wanted to be certain and Tai would be upset. Good. Unlike a certain Tsunere girl, you are a wonderful girl. I am not such a thing, take that back. HMPH. Rika shook her head, dismissively. When Naruto was around, her attitude shifted significantly from when the two of them were alone. Hopefully we can get through this period calmly. Carrie was glad at the moment and things were looking up, but she had been having unpleasant dreams and her thoughts was slightly negative at times.
Naruto spent time with the girls as a result of this. After the normal workout, Young joined them, and Naruto had some coffee with Young, over which they had a casual talk. It was a minor interaction, but it wasn't a negative one. Finally, he returned home and ran into his uncle Aizen. This individual was in charge of most of the clan's planning and development. He wasn't Kushina's brother, but rather a distant relative. Unlike most of the tribe, he was attractive and cool and calculating. Because of his dramatically different personality, some assumed he was adopted.
This man had taught him a valuable lesson. Sometimes being manipulative was the best option.
It was this individual that made him realize the consequences of his decisions. He had wrecked what he had constructed with his own hands and caused people to lose faith in him.
He didn't like manipulating and doing shady things, so Shikamaru and others handled it. By doing so, he called into question his function, and he made his supervisors so powerful that they lost the respect they were supposed to have for him. Shikamaru and Sasuke had come to the point where they didn't even consider his decisions. He had completed the task. He had turned himself into an office worker rather than a leader. What did he expect to happen when these matters were handled by others? His unprofessional behavior with his friends and even at work had eroded any semblance of respect. He was someone who didn't hold grudges and frequently overlooked other people's errors, which others took advantage of.
His friends took advantage of it as well. Shikamaru had embarrassed him in front of other people by acting without saying anything and restraining every cage in the room to demonstrate Konoha's power.
He was aware that many people referred to him as a puppet and a figurehead. He had aspired to be the greatest Hokage ever, but in reality he had become the worst.
The first Hokage established general peace in a hazardous era. He did, however, make a critical error with the Biju and Madara. The second took care of everything and enhanced Konoha. He made a mistake with the Uchiha, which planted the seeds of future problems. Third, he took care of everything and retired quietly. Everything went awry when he was forced out of retirement after the death of his wife. He wasn't the same person he used to be. Tsunade did her best to take care of things, and she didn't want to be Hokage. Kakashi didn't want to be Hokage, but he removed all threats to Konoha and forced everyone to respect it. He perfectly used Naruto and Sasuke's abilities while keeping Naruto out of his way and never letting him in on what was going on. Naruto arrived and lowered Konoha from its pedestal to equal ground. He ceased using the village's resources for large-scale murder expeditions. Konoha had lost a lot of respect under him, and Naruto's position had also declined. He was a doormat who could be walked over by anyone. All they had to do was escape being caught in a wicked act. They only needed to compose a sad story for him and express their regret. It was bad, but he had carried numerous difficulties home with him, slowing the process of restoring calm. He would have been closer to his goal if he had followed the advice of Kakashi and others. His own people would not have mistreated him or called him such derogatory names. They would not have virtually revolted against him because of illegal statements. He realized that there were moments when he had to compromise. Equality is fine and all, but he should never have led people to feel they were his equals when he might have just felt it in his heart. He should not have regulated too much power and should not have been too direct. People should have been manipulated by him. People conducted destructive activities even though they were aware that they were wrong. Some folks were unsure of what was best for them. It was his responsibility to cover those bases and use every available resource to achieve his objectives, rather than becoming mired down by minor issues that didn't need to exist. Aizen appeared to be a normal villain with such ideas, but it hit home with Naruto, and he had learned a lot from him. Naruto had presented him with some of the problems he had encountered in the previous world, and Aizen had responded without hesitation. He even said that the character in the story was unreasonable and couldn't exist. Was he even alive? What made this soldier a leader in the first place? Simply because you are a skilled combatant does not imply that you are a good leader. To be honest, it had been unpleasant. He had to stay there for 5 minutes with Aizen cursing him since he despised it when people were foolish. Aizen then ordered him to read a lot of books so he wouldn't say such rubbish again. Returning to the present, Naruto sat down with his favorite uncle and had a little conversation with him. They were still on the lookout for the Akatsuki and planned to hit some criminal organization shortly for information. Aizen then discussed Yurine, his daughter, and what Naruto had planned. Yurine was very close to him and they had known each other since they were children. She was only 2 years his senior, yet they were close enough to wash together even today. Naruto was her Prince Charming, and she had wished to marry him since she was a child. She couldn't get that thought out of her head, and Aizen had brought it up with Minato. Aizen didn't mind Yurine being one of his females because he was already aware of Naruto's numbers and was a rational guy. To him, Naruto having many children was a good thing since it would let the Uzumaki clan to take over the world. He had outlandish ambitions. He did warn him, though, not to make her unhappy or he will be castrated in his sleep. Naruto had no doubts because Aizen moved quickly and without hesitation. His Digimon partner was Wisemon, who possessed mastery over space and time, allowing him to attack from another city if he so desired. Urine's call and his dick could be gone the next second. Naruto told him not to worry and that he would make her happy since she wasn't going to move on and he didn't want a miserable Urine with another guy.
He wanted her to be happy. Naruto went after that little discussion and came upon Rias playing with her buddies in the game room. Her pals were all attractive, and not all of them came from wealthy families. Hyo Mina was also present as they played a fun Digimon game that allowed them to train for the future. They'd receive one the next year. Rei Ayanami, Reina, Suzy, Dora, Sandy, and Wendy were among those there, in addition to Hyo Mina.
Rias appeared to have a strong awareness of his presence, as if she had a GPS implanted in her body, as she saw him and hugged him before tugging him inside to play with them and give them instructions. Naruto cherished his siblings, and since he had time, he spent it with them before spending time with maids. The thing about a hero is that even when there doesn't appear to be a light at the end of the tunnel, he'll keep digging, he'll keep trying to do right and make up for what's gone before, simply because that's who he is.
The truth is that your childhood hero's heroics was not true valor. It was a performance. The great gesture, the decisive moment, the fatal danger, the external foe, the climactic conflict whose outcome is all made to appear heroic, to excite and delight an audience. Gentlemen, welcome to reality. There is no audience. There was no one to cheer or appreciate. There will be no one to see you. Do you get what I'm saying? The truth is that true heroism earns no applause and entertains no one. Nobody lines up to see it. Nobody is curious.
These were two realizations Naruto had in his life. The acclaim and excitement had long since faded. People didn't care about what he did and just saw what he didn't do. He couldn't hold it against them. He had shown them a wonderful dream and smashed it as if it were a mirage.
He had hoped that things would improve after a climactic battle in the old world, but it was a childish wish. He had focused on the important things in life since beginning this journey, and he had overlooked the minor things along the road. He'd forgotten Jiraiya's advice about the minor things in life becoming too huge to handle.
In my new life, I had seen those things and recognized the problem. Things got off to a shaky start. Things began with a family, then progressed to society, then to the city, then to the country, and so on. He witnessed the consequences of a shattered family, an abusive household, and cheating. These factors, as well as how they were viewed, shaped events. It was how individuals treated each other and how that gradually progressed to another level. Things didn't just happen. They were created in phases, and he had never considered these challenges because of the larger issues. He'd seen it now, and he'd stepped in anytime he recognized these issues. He assisted families. He assisted people in leaving harmful partnerships. He counseled the folks who were the source of the problem. He could have destroyed their social standing, but he wanted to help them grow.
He carried out these minor tasks. It was his way of giving back and atoning for his faults in the past, particularly with his family. The world didn't need him to be a hero anymore. There were better individuals for the job, but he knew it was only a matter of time. He couldn't get away from this route, and he didn't want to. He was born to be a hero, and he will be one. Returning to the present, 2 days flew past in the blink of an eye. Tesla and Takato had effectively resolved their issues and were ready to depart.
The entire group had loved their vacation as usual and encouraged one another, strengthening their relationships, particularly amongst the girls and Digimon. It was a pleasant time, and Naruto had thoroughly loved it. He'd met up with Mi-young, Nasari, and Yumi over the course of 2 days for casual talk or shopping after they'd run into each other. Naruto had not visited Nasari's home. He'd only helped her personality and kept her from going down the wrong path. She was interested in wealth and power, but what would she do with it? With the way she was marching towards that aim, her end was looking bleak.
She was a superficial lady who desired wealth and power. She stalked Mi-young's house like a predator, hoping to get some dirt on her so she could throw dirt in her eyes. She came from an average family, so it was her ambition to rise above the rest. she had been humiliated and bullied as a child by people who were envious of her beauty. Her past had made her fascinated with power and money. Her mother had constantly grumbled about money and how she wished she had married someone with a large bank account rather than her husband, with whom she had cheated and divorced.
Nasiri did eventually listen to him, but she continued to pursue him, and her personality had not changed. Even if he could connect with their hearts, changing people was difficult. Forgetting about the screwed-up woman, Naruto had talked to Young about it and gotten her to think about it. She felt unsure because she lacked confidence.
She was about to take another offer only to fight her sentiments, but Naruto talked her out of it. She was just going to hurt the other person and then feel bad about it. Moving on from the pranks of the previous days, the gang finally passed through the gate and was teleported to the digital world.
They had arrived in a city with strong ties to Japan on the Asia side of the royal sector. This part of the territory was ruled by Izumi and Takuya Kanbara, who had been lovers for a long time but were now separated for unclear reasons. Kara was their daughter. The city was named Dawn because it was the first city constructed in the digital world, and if people were lucky, they could find their heroes in this city. It was a stroke of luck because they were constantly going around and checking on things in various industries in the human world. Their lives were consumed by work, so it's logical that they were anxious. They had numerous reasons to be concerned because the human side was still not comparable to the Digimon side.
Takuya was the one who gave the crests to the Digi destined after accepting their potential. When the ancient fighters reached a certain level of power, they made contact with every powerful tamer, which meant Naruto's party would almost certainly encounter them. When Naruto stepped out of the gate, he saw a blue sky above him and a metropolis spread out in front of him. It appeared to be more sophisticated than the human world, with the main distinction being the large number of Digimon in the city. In the human world, this was limited to a few Digimon compared to the actual percentage, but no Digimon had to stay inside the Digivice because they could travel around freely. It was the finest location for them. It felt like they were at home, and it helped them feel stronger. The Digimons were not alone. Surprisingly, Naruto felt the same way, and it reaffirmed his suspicions that a Digimon was involved in his reincarnation. Naruto simply stored that in his head and focused on the present scenario, as Arthur and Takato looked about wildly, making ecstatic gestures, and Tesla and Aaliyah were not far behind them. Asura appeared joyful and was soaking in the views, but he didn't appear to be someone who had never been out. Luna simply glanced about and took note of what she saw. She was a ninja who needed to remember things for future use. Rika had a smile on her face, but she was also in charge, as were Henry and Carrie. They just emerged to be greeted by teammates and relatives. Davis had collected the crew for Carrie, while Yurine had come for Naruto with her sister Mio. Davis was followed by his group of the next generation, while Sora's companion followed them without being spotted. Yole was the group's oldest member and the only one with a champion Digimon. She was a lovely young lady with long, straight lavender hair that reached her waist, brown eyes, and glasses. She was 18 at the time. Yole was vivacious and usually self-assured, however she could be embarrassed to confess her genuine feelings if they didn't satisfy her own standards. She was also obstinate, cheeky, and rash. Yole, like Mimi Tachikawa, was rather loud and bold, but she was very sincere and true to her sentiments to the point that she was often unconscious of others or how her feelings were hurting others. She was empathetic and generous, yet she could also be decisive and resourceful. She had strange tendency to become depressed without explanation, yet she always found the strength to return and aid her friends. She was a very caring person who cared profoundly for her friends and family, and she, like Mimi, would do anything to protect and help people. She was faithful to her feelings even though she didn't want to argue, and when it came down to it, she would tell it like it was without apologizing. Yole's most remarkable talent was her technical ability. She was Izzy's replacement as president of Odaiba High School's Computers Club, could fix any mechanical item, and was also skilled at sound editing. She was also dating Ken, whom she saw as an ideal boyfriend material due to his immaculate stats. Hawkmon and Gadaman, Ains and Lola, were her partners. Her partners were both champion level, and she could combine them for greater strength. According to the reading, her Gadaman was unlikely to reach the Ophanamon level, but she had no intention of listening to a machine tell her what to do. Ken was the second to arrive. standing calmly by Davis. Ken had light blue eyes and dark blue hair. Ken was a kind and loving person at heart. He was polite and respectful to others, and he had a soft demeanor. He was plagued, though, by the murder of his older brother, Sam, who died rescuing him from a Digimon attack.
His remorse and desire to ensure that no one else suffered as a result of him led him to be self-sacrificing and believe that he did not deserve happiness. This changed when he met the group and spoke with Naruto, who assisted him in getting out of the stump and finding happiness. That was why he was so devoted to Naruto and wanted to make him proud. In his perspective, Naruto had replaced his older brother.
Ken had a forthright and sassy side that he only displayed to individuals he trusted, such as his mother and Davis. He wouldn't say it to Naruto because he saw him as more than just a friend. Ken, on the other hand, had a cold, nasty, and sadistic side that showed when he was upset. He seems to enjoy nothing more than causing agony and suffering to Digimon for his enjoyment. This was most likely due to the trauma of his brother's death. Ken was both smart and athletic. He excelled at chess and judo when he wanted to, as well as becoming a top-level computer programmer and soccer player. He also spoke other languages. Davis regarded him as a rival at school, beginning with soccer and then moving on to fighting skills before turning his attention to Naruto. Ken was now best friends with Davis and had been dating Yole for a few months. Warman, whose name was Jotaro, was his sidekick. Takaru, Yamato's younger brother and Naruto's close friend, stood on the other side. He had blonde hair and blue eyes and a gentle demeanor. TK was a happy and friendly individual. He disliked it when people were arguing or upset, and would go to any length to make others happy. He was fiercely protective of his loved ones and took his role as the digital world's defender very seriously. He was upbeat and constantly attempted to maintain a smile on his face. Patamon's partner's name was Micah. Iori Hida, a short man with brown hair and green eyes, stood behind Takaru. Cody was the most serious, and he always acted with maturity far above his years. His grandfather, who had been the sole masculine influence in his life since his father's death, provided most of his wisdom. His vision was initially quite black and white, as befitting a toddler, which led him to be very stubborn and rather harsh on people. Later in his schooling, he saw the error of his methods and progressively softened in nature, having discovered that reality and people could never be as black and white as he formerly firmly believed. Cody was incredibly curious, but unlike Izzy Izumi, the senior bearer of the trait of knowledge, Cody was more interested in the nature of individuals than the mechanics of the world. Regardless, he was as curious as his predecessor. Cody, like the elder bearer of the reliability trait, Joe Kido, was honest and trustworthy. Cody, like Joe, held himself to a high standard and frequently questioned whether he was as dependable as he could be, fearing he would let the team down. Dio, an armadilloman, was his mate. Meiko Mochizuki was the group's final member. Meiko was a lovely adolescent with fair skin, long black hair, and pink eyes. Meiko was a bashful and polite young lady who frequently apologized for her social ineptitude while meeting new people. When she was humiliated, she sneezed frequently and blushed profusely. She had less training than the others and was heavily reliant on them. Despite her quiet demeanor, her inner bravery shone out at times, and she presented a completely different picture. She was a caring person and friend to everyone, especially Carrie, her best friend. She was also in love with Davis, but she never revealed since she didn't want her heart to be destroyed knowing he was set on Carrie. She adored Carrie, yet she was occasionally envious of her. She, like Hikari and Takaru, had a lot of celestial Digimon. Misa, a Meikumon rookie, was her mate. Yurine was the next person to leave Hikari's group. She was a lovely girl with good form and an athletic body who drew attention. Her hair was short and her eyes were green. She was a happy, self-assured young lady. She was an outgoing and erotic woman. She enjoyed fighting and exercising out. She was also highly intelligent, as Aizen would not tolerate his children acting foolishly. Highlander, a bulkmon, was her partner. Mio was by her side. She was a year older than Yurine. She was a lovely young lady with a serious and sophisticated appearance. Her hair was long and her eyes were violet. She inherited her father's calculating nature. Mio had been playing a game with him as well, so Yurine wasn't the only one after him. She'd been experimenting with different methods of presenting herself to see how he reacted. She occasionally touched him. Naruto might argue that it was the first time he had seen a girl do that to him because she displayed her body in a strategic manner, as if she was gradually building up to a finale. She was far too astute and proactive in her approach. Maybe Sasuke would have fallen if Sakura had done anything like this. Miriam, an Exorman, was her mate. Yurine cried out and jumped Naruto without hesitation after being gone for a month on her mission. Her mate was one of the world's strongest champion-level Digimon, which was only recently becoming prevalent. Naruto, I've missed you so much. Did you miss me? Did you miss this feeling? Yurine held him tightly and spoke the last sentence in a sexual tone. She, like her sister, knew how to have fun with others. With how erotic most of the girls around him were, he would have given in long ago if he had been anyone else. It wasn't only the four maids. Other maids and so many people tried to entice him everywhere he went. It was the longing for a better life, one that was happy and secure, because having a normal lover meant that your existence was dependent on others. I did, Naruto said, hugging her and kissing her cheek. She grinned as she heard his response. Naruto typically gave direct replies to her queries, therefore it meant what she thought. Finally, woohoo. When are we getting married? Sis, slow down. It appears we are out of the loop, Mio said as she stepped forward to greet Davis and the others. To avoid getting in the path of others, the group had moved away from the gate. Mio pointed to Rika and Hikari, who were standing on his sides and looking at each other. Oh, Rika, Hikari, I didn't see you guys there, so let me guess, you guys are a thing and somehow managed to turn Naruto into a harem seeker. What is your secret, mistress? Yurine joked as she kissed both of their cheeks. She was serious, and I'm curious, Mio said as she hugged Naruto and scented him before trying to kiss him on the lips. She had always kissed him on the cheeks, chin, or forehead, but this time she kissed him on the lips, but Naruto blocked her effort. Not yet, we are still not there, Naruto said, giving her the answer she was searching for. Yet? It appears you are seriously considering this relationship, which I thought you would never feel. You shouldn't make assumptions when I've already answered, it's just a matter of time. I suppose it might have something to do with this part or that part. Not sure, but I'm not going to stop playing the game. It's fun, isn't it? Mio replied as she tapped the heart. Hey, make some space. That's my place, sis. I haven't recharged my Narutonium batteries yet. Yurine pushed her to the side and clung to him like a koala. He could feel the glares as she did what she wanted. Both females were aware of Yurine and Mio's behavior but had forgotten about it due to their delight during the week. Rika took a step forward for both of them, pulling Yurine away from Naruto. Come on, I wasn't finished. Yurine was simply teasing them, though she was intrigued what happened while she was gone. Something huge had to happen for Naruto to change, or he was just too good at hiding. Both were plausible because Naruto was an expert at concealment. He just decided to carry out his evil plan once he gained his Digimon partner. That's your answer. He'll take you in, but don't act too familiar with him around us, we're still his first. You're not even second best, Rika replied in her signature chilly and sarcastic tone. Relax, no fighting. Mio, lead us to a place where we can all sit down and talk, Naruto said before hugging them both. He was used to being intimate with them, so acting like this was quite natural for him. Big brother Naruto, I am delighted to see you here. Would you please allow me to show you around? Ken approached him and stood in front of him. Naruto couldn't deny the small kid with the bright eyes. Ken reminded him of a younger brother. Menma gave him the same impression. He simply enjoyed having a large family and didn't mind having more brothers and sisters. And I hope you loved it and will leave a comment. This is a brief glimpse at a future arc in which Naruto returns home. It had been a long and difficult voyage into the Wichelny area with his team. It had been several years since he had turned 25, but he had finally found a means to return to his home Earth. He'd encountered Shakamon, one of the strongest Digimon in existence, who was only below King Drazel, and been assigned a duty. Shakamon had already tried him but never provided a clear answer. He was instructed to seek Lampmon in this magical zone. It was a one-of-a-kind Digimon that was based on Aladdin's genie and had the ability to grant wishes. Shakamon appears to have urged him to accomplish his aim by himself rather than relying on others. He had grown stronger than his old prime, and the majority of his Digimon had already reached Mega, but he still hadn't mastered space and time powers to the point where he could locate his world. He'd landed himself in random universes and realized he wasn't going to discover it without the help of an expert. Shakamon was his only hope because neither King Drazel nor Naruto had anything to do with that callous person. They had a lot of issues between them, and Naruto was going to rip him to shreds for all that monster had done. Returning to the matter at hand, the voyage had been difficult because the world had altered dramatically and Digimon had grown stronger and more hostile. Because to the numerous battles, the number of Mega Digimon has risen in recent years. It was lucky that the Earth was still safe and that humanity had not been extinct as a result of the War of Worlds. Everything was almost done at that time, but humanity prevailed, and Naruto played a significant role in it. Nonetheless, it was the past, and Naruto was only interested in seeing his world. The creature that had brought him to this world had tortured and mentally broken him. He was shown a nightmare world. He'd been assured it was simply a possibility, not a reality, but it didn't help. He needed to see for himself and finish what he had begun. He possessed great power. He possessed the necessary abilities. He was knowledgeable. Naruto was confident that he would be able to finally defend his world from evil. He had no desire to be the leader. He will command all of the leaders and ensure that everything goes his way. That was his final thought. He was the protagonist. He played the soldier. He was the hero. He was not the monarch. He was not the emperor, and he had no desire to be one. He merely wanted to save the world, and things like leadership were not his thing. He would only be responsible for the basis and continuous progress. Regardless of the hurdles, seeing how close he was to his goal made him grin like a little kid. He couldn't keep a smile off his face since he was so excited. He was simply overjoyed. It also made everyone happy. While the rest of the team decided to scout the area, Naruto was resting with his partners. It was a mountainous area with cold winds and snow on the ground. Alphamon, Beelzemon, Bancho-Leomon, and Darkdramon had joined the others, while Asura and Diablo sat by his side in a smaller human shape. Because there had been so many battles along the way, the other partners were taking a break. It was best to have others ready. Naruto was preparing to take a brief nap when he noticed two figures smash through space, leaving cracks that swiftly closed up. One of the figures was a young woman who was covered in a pale green energy that reminded him of the Tenseigan chakra mode. He couldn't determine who it was because of the energy and armor that was around them. He did, however, identify the other figure. Ashiki's subordinate was the blonde filthy scum. Delta. She appeared to be an arrogant bitch playing with her prey, much like their first encounter. He had made the mistake of not capturing her that day, and she had survived to make his people's lives a terrible nightmare. While Asura and Diablo glanced at the intruders, Naruto stood up, exhausted from the fighting. Ragna. Naruto cried out to his buddy, who was half-clad in black and crimson armor and wielding a golden big blade. Ragna Lordman, his Digimon buddy. It was a powerful Mega, but combining with him was the best option because it was a weapon Digimon. On occasion, he combined it with Asura. He didn't have to, but he was being cautious. The entire affair took a split second, and he moved as if teleported as he broke through space to rain down like a storm on his adversary. With one slice, he had ripped Delta in half horizontally so as not to injure the brain portion. For both boxers, it was a startling moment. Long time no see, Delta. I really wish you were dead so we didn't have to go through this, Naruto said calmly, looking at his downed rival, who was taking in his appearance. It didn't take long for them to realize she was a cyborg. His appearance was slightly altered, yet everyone recognized him as Naruto. Delta exclaimed, her eyes wide with surprise, Uzumaki Naruto, how? Naruto, like her owner, had died 5 years before. She didn't act the same way in front of him. To her, he was a monster. He had slain Ashiki when he was awakened, so she had no chance. Fortunately, she had other bodies and he couldn't commit to her permanently. That understanding allowed her to unwind. Father, is that you? Naruto's neck wrenched back at breakneck speed when he heard those words, nearly breaking his bone. He probably wouldn't have cared. Hima, is that you? Naruto couldn't help but grab the woman in his arms. Hearing her name, the energy cloak fell and the helmet opened. She could also see his face, which was only slightly different from what she remembered. Even though he had been gone for 5 years, she had never forgotten her father. He was always in town and worked nearby, so she always went to him. She was relieved when she realized it was him and held him warmly. She couldn't stop crying out of relief and despair. She had to be strong because of the circumstances, but he was here to make her feel like a little girl again. Naruto was relieved to see Hima, but he was concerned by her agony and appearance. Nothing had gone right following his death, as these two could see. Diablo, hack her and acquire everything for me. Yes, sir. Allow me to handle it. I'll show her the Diablo. Diablo replied in a humorous tone, although his words and intents were far from destructive. He was one of the most heinous Digimon to stalk Naruto. Naruto remained silent. Diablo was both thrilled and sorry for his owner because of his silence. It was unusual for his master to become so frigid. He was a nice guy who didn't like seeing people in agony, yet he didn't say anything here. It meant that this was personal, and Diablo went all out. Naruto kissed Hima on the head and cheeks. I am here, Hima. I am real, and everything will be okay now. You don't have to hide anything or carry anything on your shoulders. I am here for you, Naruto stated gently as he flew up and before stopping on a peak to offer her peace and quiet. He possessed the ability to change reality on a small scale, so this was nothing new to him. Diablo was correct. Naruto was angry, but unlike before, he was cool and calculated. He could observe his young princess's delicate mental state. She had reached a breaking point due to stress and depression. Everyone else may be in worse shape if she was like this. Girls, don't return till I call you. My daughter has arrived. Naruto warned the females to stay their distance since he didn't want to break his daughter. She would require assistance to get past this before she could face that reality. Her life had been a never-ending downward spiral, whereas his had ups and downs, but he was having a decent life. To be continued.
That's it for this part, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope you did enjoy this part of the story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.